Okay, good morning. Looks like I'm live. That's very exciting. So, with 2019 now firmly in the rearview mirror, it's time to look forward to the future and starting right now. So, I've been telling everyone as I go into my 49th season that this is promising to be the absolute best season yet. So, is it true? Let's find out when I get into my first broadcast of 2020 called Charlotte's New Year, New What? Good morning, all you charmers. I'm so glad you joined me today. This is Pure Charm by me, Charlotte Millington. My one and only goal is to help you improve your charm so you can increase your influence. So, thank you again for joining me on today's live show. This is the first broadcast from Victoria, British Columbia, at a little after 5:39 in the morning. So very early here, and I'm on my way to the gym. In case you're thinking, wow, she really dressed up for her very first event. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, can you please make sure that you hit the subscribe button and then the little bell below as well, so that you can always be notified whenever I have a video. My little message says unable to connect to chat. All right. Well, it doesn't look like my throngs of people, all one people who I have as somebody who could be in this group right now, is trying to chat, so that's okay. I'm able to connect to chat. Well, I don't know what that means exactly, so I guess I'm not going to field any questions this morning, and I'm okay with that. So it's 2020, and absolutely everywhere I look, I see posts from everyone and every company promising a new year and a new you with tips and tricks to make you a new and improved you. So 30 seconds in the gym, and you know that everyone is on a kick right now to get healthy, to lose weight, to find balance, and to unlock their absolute true potential. So I have a question for you. What if I told you that 2020 is the exact same you as it was in 2019? So what would that change for you? I decided to look into some of the beliefs surrounding wellness, balance, and habits, and I learned some good things that I'm going to share with you this morning. So why is that? Well, I'm going to get into that right now. But first, since this is a live show and I can't edit this out, it's coffee time. So cheers, coffee in the morning at 5:39 in British Columbia. So let's talk about wellness, because without it, balance and habits live in a vacuum. The pundits can't agree on how many components of wellness there are. So some say 8 and some say 4. And after reading a few dozen highly educated articles, I came up with a list of 6. Now, these 6 aren't original by any means, but they are the 6 that I liked, and that you are welcome to disagree with me on, or you can tell me more about the ones that you think are critical, or maybe the ones that you can't believe I forgot to add. What I see in the 6 areas of wellness, I see social, emotional, physical, occupational, and intellectual. What did I miss? That was supposed to be 6. Anyway, here's the interpretation. Here's my interpretation of each of these areas. So let's start with number 1, which is social. Everyone has different social needs. Some people need to be around people to feel truly alive, and some people need to be alone to feel truly alive. But as a species, humans are really social creatures. We need love, we need communication, and we need touch. However you assemble your pack, or what size your pack actually is, make sure it meets your needs, because for me, my example, my interpretation of the word friend is very, very fluid. And I visualize my own social needs in increasing circles of influence. Oh, hey, look, I've got a second person who's just joined the group. Nice to see you. Good morning, person number 2 who can't interact with me because chat is still unable to connect. And I still have no idea what that means. It is what it is. All right. So in my increasing circles of social influence, circle number 1 is for people who I haven't met yet. And these are usually kind of like the friendly strangers, and you're familiar with friendly strangers. You know, these are the people who you see over and over again in conferences and monthly meetings, or maybe you pass them in the hall or the grocery store several times each day. We aren't friends, but I call that we aren't friends yet. We may or may not know each other's names, because that's kind of the nature of friendly strangers. We're probably on a smile and nod level of communication. So unless truly we're forced into proximity, like in a coffee line, in which case we can make some social talk, we don't really have any connection. So there's a connection, but there's no friendship. And if we are ever introduced, in my mind, we'll now be friends because we have a history. But we're not there yet. We just aren't friends quite yet. My friends category, so that's circle number 2, is absolutely massive. That's the next circle of my social needs. If we have ever met and we have ever had a conversation, whether it was in real life or whether it was online, in my world, bam, just like that, we are friends. So the friend circle for me is very vast. And like I said earlier, it's very fluid. Pretty much most of humanity is actually in my friend group. My literal and actual only criteria is some sort of common experience, preferably that has resulted in an in-joke. In-jokes are very important to me. So this is like an everyone welcome club. And once you've made it to my friend list, I will love you until we die because that's just how I tick. The only thing that makes me happier is when I can get some of my friends to also be friends. And I feel like it's my calling in life to introduce people to other people. I'm one of the people who's a connector. If you're a who's the author? Gladstone, Malcolm Gladstone. Malcolm, oh, nuts. And the chat's not functioning. So you're just going to take my word for it. Malcolm, whatever his last name is, he has people who are categorized into different groups. And for me, my group is that I'm a networker. So I like to connect people. I'm a connector. That's what it is. It's not a networker. It's a connector. I should really read the book again because if we're going to reference it, this is a disaster. Okay, let's get back to on track here. My friend category is absolutely massive. And if you go on my Facebook personal profile, you realize how massive my category is. But then there's this other group that I call the vault. And it's the outer ring of my friends category. And this is for people with whom I am so incompatible, having them in my friend category would be detrimental to my well-being. I know them, we've probably attempted a friendship, and then they turned out to be a whole lot of scary. An example of this can really be seen by anyone who watched my interactions with Jessica Yaniv last summer. She got into my friend circle with absolutely no problem. Remember, it's a very open circle, and it's very fluid. But as soon as I realized she was a stalker and had a very strong and frightening history with allegations and court cases and litigation following her, she went into my vault category. It was sort of like, danger, danger, Will Robinson. The vault category is very tiny, however. It's sort of like the outer ring of my friendship circle. Like, it's kind of like being in exile. I think that'd be the best way to describe it. Only a few people ever really go in it. And you truly, truly have to be a menace to humanity, in my estimation, before you end up there. It's like I said, my friendship group is an all-welcome crowd. I don't know how other people categorize their social needs, and I would absolutely love to know. So please share how that looks for you. And it's helpful to understand your social needs. It's helpful to understand your social needs since one of the 6 components of wellness is social. You'll benefit from knowing yourself, and you can really make sure that that part of your life is taken care of, particularly if you've tapped into your own personal resources. So whatever it takes to make sure your social cup is filled, grab some friends, grab some coffee, sit together in class, text across the hall. Just make sure that your social needs are really, really well and truly met because you need that. So number 2 are emotional needs, the next piece of the wellness pie. Everything I've read on the emotional wellness. Oh, look, we're being joined by Max. There's Max, my dog. He's getting comfortable this morning. Look, I have another person who's watching. It's Max, my dog. How wonderful of Max. Okay, time for more coffee. So everything that I've ever read on emotional wellness says that we need to aspire to be even in our temperament. So we need to be calm in the face of waves, cool in the line of fire, and then absolutely collected when others around us are not. So I'm not any of those things. I'm very mercurial. I rage when things don't go my way or the way that they should. I cry during movies when literally nobody else in the audience is crying, and I'm like one of the ugly cry people, so you notice when I'm crying. I laugh really loudly when it's totally inappropriate, so I can't actually agree that our emotional life goal should be serenity. What I do think is that what we should have is emotional goals of consistency and situational appropriateness. So, and situational appropriateness also deals with our emotional volumes. So, when people cry during a movie, that's completely fine. But the people who are like wailing in the back of the audience, that's not okay. And that doesn't really happen. But you get what I'm saying. Like there's situational emotional appropriateness. In addition to situational emotional appropriateness, there's also the lifestyle that's attached to that. So if you walk through life weeping, you're not well. Yes, you have achieved consistency, but nonstop weeping is a sign that you need help, frankly. And the same goes for nonstop laughing. Like, if you've ever been with somebody who's a giggler, it's situationally inappropriate. So yes, they have achieved consistency, but again, that's really not a good sign. Giggling is not a good sign. Nonstop laughing is not a good sign. It's probably a sign actually you came unglued quite a while ago and that you really would benefit from some help. There's a time and a place to experience joy, sadness, and anger, but there's also a measure of how much those are really situationally appropriate. Being angry because somebody cut in front of you in a line is understandable, but if you treat the line budger like they just have impugned your family's name, and now they must pay, well, you're not in a good emotional place. So that's not okay. So how do you get yourself into a good place? Well, you need a little bit of self-care, really. Maybe you can read a book, maybe you can have a bath. These are things that kind of give us a little bit of chill. You can go for a walk, but do whatever it takes to put yourself into a predictable path of behavior. So mental wellness is the next piece, and thanks to recent pushes in social media, our society is finally starting to understand that mental wellness is critical to our survival. Everyone reaches adulthood with baggage. That's just a fact. And there's absolutely nothing unusual about that because that baggage is what has shaped us and it makes us who we are today. What is problematic is when that baggage saps our mental energy and makes us as a society vulnerable to depression, PTSD, and suicidal ideations. Anyone who has experienced poor mental health knows that you can't just shake it off and you can't just jolly yourself back into a good place, and it's not really a choice to just be happy again. Not even when someone with really good intentions tells you that it's all a mindset choice. So, sometimes you need help, sometimes you need professional help just to be on an even keel. But assuming that you are neurotypical and all is firing exactly as it should be upstairs, then paying attention to the small stuff will keep your mental wellness on track. It's like just a regular check-in. Evidence is showing us that eating well and getting good fresh air isn't just good for your physical health, it's also good for your mental health. Speaking of mental health, the new year is a time for resolutions. It's number 4. The gym is absolutely packed right now. The produce aisle of the grocery store is booming with sales because people are on top of their diets, they're on top of their wellness. And as we all know, by mid-February, the gym is going to be empty and the center aisles are going to be once again the draw for the truly hungry snackers and the truly hungry shoppers. So don't be a New Year's resolution physical health proponent. For your life to be seriously improved, you need to commit to a 12-month goal of eating less and moving more. There's a lot of fad diets, and absolutely everybody loves to try these fad diets. Everybody likes to talk about how this fad diet has worked for them, and to some degree, the different fad diets really do work quite well. The problem is that some of the fad diets do things like they say, excuse me, you should cut out carbs. And that's all very well and fine, but what if it is that you're not actually sure what a carb actually is? That's one of my pet peeves. People who say I'm cutting out carbs, but they don't actually truly know what a carb is. They're not clear on it. They mean they're cutting out bread. But let's talk about let's talk about carbs, because I think that we need to have a little macronutrient lesson here. Okay, so there are 3 macronutrients: fat, protein, and carbohydrates. Remember carbs, or what most people like to think of as carbs. Butter is very clearly a fat. Lean chicken is very clearly a protein. Lettuce is very clearly a carb in the macronutrient world. So when people say they're not eating carbs, what I'm really curious about is what they're actually doing. I was watching one of those shows, My 600-Pound Life or something like that. And this person who had to go on an emergency weight loss plan said that she is following her doctor's diet and she's cut out carbs. And my first thought was, well, okay, let's see if she's really cut out carbs. So the next flash is they show what she's eating. And yes, in fact, she has cut out carbs. And it is one of the most frightening I'm getting healthy diets ever. But I'm not going to say if it works or not because I'm not the doctor in this case. And there is merit in cutting all carbs if you want to lose weight quickly. Put your body into a state of ketosis. What she was quite literally eating was deep fried cheese that was enrobed in sour cream, and it looked absolutely revolting. But it was critical to her to lose weight. So whatever I want to say about that revolting diet, it it was going to have an outcome that I assume was required. I didn't watch the entire show. I don't really watch that show, but it caught my attention because I was like, wow, just wow. She cut out carbs. Man, she really did cut out carbs. Like there was no vegetable on that plate at all. However, for truly normal, healthy people who just have a little bit of weight to lose, and by a little bit, I don't mean 500 pounds, I mean like 50 pounds, maybe even 100 pounds. My advice before you jump onto the carb-free bandwagon is truly decide what you want the rest of your life to look like, and then go for a sustainable life. Max is really doing his thing down here. Really, what I'm saying is consider eating vegetables. Vegetables are a good thing. They're important to our bodies. Humans are not health. We're not houseplants. To live, we need sunshine, we need fresh air, we need fresh food, and we also need some movement. So get outside, have some fruit, take a dance class, do whatever it is that do whatever it is that you need to take care of your body, because if your physical needs aren't taken care of, your ability to remain alive is going to be cut short. You could have the best mental health in the entire world, but if you can't move because you haven't taken care of your body, then you're in a scary situation. So the next category for me is occupational. And this was a very interesting one, and I really kind of struggled with whether or not this one was appropriate. Occupational needs are very often overlooked. Because of the nature of the work that I do, I see occupational health as an important part of wellness. Everyone has to work in the society. The fact is that most of us have got jobs. There's very few of us who are privileged enough to not have a job. And the real problem here is that some of the jobs that we have are absolutely soul-sucking energy vampires. And for people who are in these jobs, every single day feels like a battle just to get out of bed and go to work. There's no specific classification that really makes a job wearying. Some jobs just flat out grind you down, and it doesn't really matter what that job is. It could be your dream job, or it could be the job that you just kind of landed in because you kind of just needed a job and the proximity was good. It doesn't really matter what the classification is. Some jobs just drain you regardless. So according to Malcolm Gladwell, I knew I'd remember his name. It came to me. Okay, according to Malcolm Gladwell, there are 3 job characteristics that make a job meaningful. So there's 3 characteristics that make a job meaningful. So autonomy, complexity, and a connection between effort and reward. So truly what that means is that every single job has the potential to be satisfying or unsatisfying, because it's not the job itself that gives satisfaction, but the characteristics of the job. Okay, it's time for another sip of coffee here. Oh, I got a like on my video. Yay! Thank you, person who liked my video. I appreciate the like. I appreciate the thumbs up all the time because that's very cool. Okay, so let's say that you are I've got hair in my face this morning. Okay, let's say that you are a factory worker in a widget factory. So I don't know what a widget factory is. I don't know what a widget is, but it seems that every single textbook that I have ever owned has got people buying them and selling them, and everybody is creating them. So let's go make them. We're going to go off to the factory and we're going to make them. All day you stand at the assembly line making widgets. Let's even call it your dream job, and you trained for it. So you went to Widget University. Widget University. I'm making stuff up now. Okay, so I don't know what that is, but you trained for it. This is your dream job. You've always wanted to work with widgets, and here you are. So off you go to the Widget Factory, and your boss gives you total autonomy over your job, and you're trusted to do it well because you always have. So you have achieved something that's significant. But then one day your boss is replaced. And we've all been in this situation where you go from having a job that you enjoy to having a new manager. And the new manager on the team removes your autonomy because they're a micromanager. We've all experienced this. So you no longer feel trusted. And now where does your satisfaction level go? It just goes down. Nothing in the job has changed, just your autonomy. And as a result of that, your job satisfaction has gone down. It's often said that people don't leave the job, they leave the manager. And this certainly seems to be true because we can see industries where people training leave one organization or department to go exactly to go to the exact same job elsewhere, and they are seemingly happier for it. So your occupational wellness impacts your life enormously. That's where I'm going with this. So, how do you cope with a job you can't change? Because in some cases, you just can't go changing your environment. You can't change the factory down the street. You can't change the opportunity or the availability of jobs. So, how do you cope within that? Well, my theory is that this is actually where network marketing companies have their toehold, and I'm absolutely fascinated by this concept, and I've studied it absolutely enormously. Network marketing companies allow people who feel hopeless in their occupations to find hope. Now, as humans, we thrive on hope. So, do network marketing companies actually work? Well, absolutely they do. That's why network marketing companies have been around for so long. They're a respected business model that allows people to jump in for a very low investment. And the problem with this is that for that very low investment, people can also jump right back out after they have ceased to become wealthy in a very short period of time as they anticipated. No, I'm not saying this is the only solution to occupational dissatisfaction. There's a whole bunch of things that you could do as coping mechanisms and as ways to actually be engaged with your job. And maybe I'll save those for a different video. But the network marketing aspect was something that I found absolutely fascinating. I'm also saying that that it is a solution, and frankly, I think it's a very creative solution. Intellectual wellness is the final piece of the wellness pie, and it's also overlooked. A huge amount of our population has little to no stimulation intellectually in their worlds, and the result is that we have a population whose mental, physical, emotional, social, and occupational health is impacted. Many people get up, they go to work, they come home, they watch TV until bedtime, and they go to bed, and then they repeat that exact same cycle again and again and again and again, and that's just not living. That's just existing. That's just putting in your time until you die. So what then is intellectual wellness? Because if this is one of the components of being well, then we need to have access to the resources that allow us to have more intellectual wellness. So again, this particular component can be divided down into three subcomponents that are dependent on each other. So we have academic, cultural, and community stimulation. You can read the absolute best book in the world stimulating your academic mind, but as humans, remember we're social creatures, we have a need to express what we've learned or to kind of work through what we're in the process of learning with other people. Now, if you can't find anybody to enjoy that book with you because it's maybe culturally divergent, like if you're reading books on feminism, then you're going to possibly find you have a limited scope of people around you who are interested in hearing about your great new feminist ideals. I'm one of them. I speak from experience, especially since I grew up in small town Nova Scotia. Hello to everyone in Nova Scotia. I'm still a feminist. I didn't outgrow the phase. What happens when you have this very limited scope of people who you can access as a resource so you can process the book is that your intellectual stimulation is absolutely, truly impacted. The need for the intellectual trifecta of academics, culture, and community is what has really given rise to online communities and their enormous population. Living in a large population center, so if you didn't grow up in rural Nova Scotia, like I did, you might live in a really large city like Vancouver or Seattle or New York or wherever it is that you live. That doesn't necessarily mean that you have easy access to the trifecta. But in online communities, you can often find like-minded people who will allow your mind to be challenged. Bored people are truly not satisfied people. People who feel stuck in a rut are very, very rarely productive, frankly, and intellectual stimulation varies from person to person enormously. What is deeply satisfying to one person is a complete snooze fest to somebody else, and that's just fine because that diversity in our intellectual needs is what gives space for our diversity and our talents. We need that diversity. So accept and encourage each other to find ways to have our brains working, and as a result, we can have a more productive society for it. All right, time for another sip of coffee. I don't know if you can see what this says. It says, "She believed she could, so she did." That was me this morning. All right. Now this really brings me back to the question of balance. Because remember, we kind of started off this whole thing with a question of balance. I see a constant desire to have balance in our lives. In fact, there are millions of articles and books dedicated to finding and achieving balance. But what if I told you there was no such thing? Our lives are already time bound to schedules that include work, that include commuting, showering, grocery shopping, being with our families, and then this myriad of other things that simply chew up our schedules. So forget balance because it's like a holy grail that can consume you for absolutely no purpose. But what you can do instead is learn how to overlay the different components of wellness so you hit more than one point at any given time. Working out, for example, doesn't need to be a solitary gym experience. Go for a walk with your significant other or something else instead. Making healthy food is a great time to listen to a mind stimulating podcast, or perhaps you could put on a video by Pure Charm and you could listen to that. But while you're also at it, you can, in fact, choose foods that nourish your brain so that your mental health can be optimized with nutrition. You may not achieve balance. And frankly, I don't know why that's a desirable thing since it's largely unattainable. But if you can make a point to hit each of the components of wellness each and every day in some capacity, you're going to be much healthier overall for it. Let's get into the last section, which is habits. And I swear I see more articles about the new you that discuss how easy it is to build a habit than is absolutely humanly necessary. The volume is enormous. So let's actually talk about how habits are formed. A couple of the key books that I've looked at will tell you that a new habit takes 21 days to form. Others are going to say 30 days, and while the numbers range, and some of them can range quite wildly, all the really popular books will tell you it just doesn't take long to achieve a new habit if you just persevere. So my question is this true? And the answer is it's really not true. It's not chronology or time that creates a habit. Yes, chronology can create a very predictable time map, but it doesn't build the habit. Other factors do that in a cycle, and the cycle is called the trigger, the behavior, and the reward. When one of those factors is missing, you don't get a new habit. So what does this actually mean? We are humans. We like the easy route. We also we do things like we have cars, so we can avoid walking even short distances. And you know what I mean, because you'll see people who get into their car at one part of the mall, they park the car, they get out, they go into the store that's over here, and they go back into the car and they drive across the parking lot to go to the store that's on the other side of the parking lot. Like that is the quintessential level of laziness that we have as humans. We like the easy route. We don't like the hard route. We even have things like pizza delivery guys who will just magically show up with our dinner when we don't feel like making it. And we invented things like remote controls because apparently having all the movies in the world delivered to our living rooms just flat out wasn't enough. So we like a world of efficiency and we like a world of ease. But more impressive in all of this is that we can acclimate so quickly to improved efficiencies. We actually get a little bit miffed. So miffed when a web page loads slowly, or we can't find that parking spot close to the doors. Now compare that to when we were children. If you're my age, I said I'm in my 49th year, so I'm actually 48 right now. I'll be 49 in April. So compare that to when we were children. And remember when we were children, we didn't have the internet. What the internet actually looked like for my age group was it looked like a 30-minute walk in the snow to get to the library. So you go to the reference section to get a book that you couldn't actually check out because it was in the reference section. So knowing how we love the easy approach to everything, this belief that we can doggedly just grit our teeth for 30 days and we will magically love kale and the elliptical trainer at the end of that 30 days is what leads so many people to fail in their annual New Year's resolutions, which brings us back to the trigger. Well, back to the trigger behavior reward cycle and how that then plays a role. Before you start any resolution, ask yourself if it contains the word should. Should is an absolute habit killer. I should lose weight. I should eat better. I should read more. I should get up earlier. Pretty soon you have enough shoulds that you are just shoulding all over yourself and you don't have one good new habit to show for it. You just have a bunch of things that you should have done, but you didn't do. So in fact, you made yourself a challenge that was hard enough, but pretty quickly you'll be reverting to your more established habits in even greater quantities than if you had done absolutely nothing. So, you know what I mean by that? What I mean is, you ever notice like swing weight in people? So, people who've successfully taken off 10 pounds, and that's really great and wonderful, but then they put on 15. It's because their old habits were so comforting that they turned to them in their moment of distress. And then they leaned on those poor habits until their happy feelings returned. So, along with that came the comforting feeling of pants that are too tight. And while that might sound a little bit strange, I'm actually not kidding. Too tight pants are a habit that we really, really like, clearly as a species. And really what that means is that not all habits that give us comfort are actually good for us. So the first thing you should do is get rid of the word should from your potential new habit. If you don't want to do it, you really aren't going to do it. If willpower were all it took to be successful, we would all be thin, we would all be rich, and we would all be fabulous. And that's just not the case. So this brings me to the trigger point. So point number one in that cycle, everyone needs to have a trigger to start a new habit. So a lot of people use January 1st as their trigger. And in reality, it's actually as good a trigger as any, but it doesn't connect to people's heart. And you really do need a trigger that connects to your heart. In my case, I've had a few triggers along my life, but I've had a more recent trigger. And this one was quite literally connected to my heart. My recent blood work, if you follow me on Facebook, you know about this. My recent blood work showed that my high-fat diet in Montreal, where I kind of ate all of the cheese in Montreal, finally caught up with me. And that wouldn't be the end of the world. So my cholesterol levels were elevated. And that wouldn't be the end of the world because it's just dietary and I can deal with that. Except that while I was dealing with the dietary question of, how am I going to increase my exercise? How am I going to deal with my cheese intake? A couple of weeks later, I learned that my biological father had had his first heart attack when he was 50. So now my trigger is my motivation to be healthy enough to keep living a good life, just keeping living at all, because the other side of my family tree isn't really much better when it comes to heart disease. So my choices really are a heart attack and all the life changes that come along with that, or just eat better and move more. And I was already pretty active. I just had a high-fat diet. So clearly I need to deal with my cheese consumption. And it was really remarkable how much cheese I could eat. Just wow. Now, some triggers are going to be life-threatening, but they all have to connect your heart to your brain so that you can make that change willingly. Next comes the behavior. That's the second part in the cycle. To truly support a new habit, you need some new behaviors. So, for example, if you want to walk 30 minutes each day as your new habit, and that's what I'm going to do after this this video is done, I'm going to head downstairs and I'm going to go work out for a little bit. So if you want to work for 30 minutes a day, you not only need to actually walk, you need to make sure that walk fits into your schedule in a meaningful way. So you might decide that you want to get up an extra hour early to fit that walk into your schedule. And that's what I do. This is what I did because I figure if I just get out of bed and go do it, I'll be too tired to argue with myself or come up with justifications for the things I need to do that are more important. For me, I'm very goal-oriented, so getting out of bed and just doing it means that I can tick a box of things I accomplished, and ticking a box is really important to me. So that works for me. But I'm not even remotely interested in leaving the house when it's cold and it's rainy, and in Victoria, that's really what winter is it rains and it's cold. We might get snow next week, apparently. And that's very rare. It's unusual. So it's usually rainy and it's cold, and I'm not very motivated to leave the house, and I'm not motivated to go for a walk when it's dark outside. So I make the first walk of the day incredibly easy on myself. I go to the treadmill, which is downstairs. I still have my PJs on. I still have bedhead, and I just get on there with my running shoes on, and I just do it. And that's just all there is to it. I don't need perfection. I need the walk. And that's really why you're never going to see a picture of me on social media doing my morning workout routine. Sometimes it's yoga and sometimes it's weight training, but whatever it is, you're not going to find a picture of me because nobody needs a picture of me in my pajamas working out with bedhead. But suffice to say, behaviors are a critical part of a new habit. So make it as easy on yourself as humanly possible so you can follow through on it. There's no rule that says your healthy new diet needs to be plated like you're a foodie blogger, and you don't need to drive 10 minutes out of the way just to make sure that the produce that you add to your diet as part of your New Year's resolution comes from the trendy, hip food market. Just keep going on the same routine that you're comfortable with, but make the minor change, and those minor changes are much more achievable when they're minor. The last step is reward. And this is a big one to interpret because some rewards are intrinsic, meaning that they are an internal baked into the reward, and some are extrinsic, meaning that you kind of have to add them you have to add them for them to be acknowledged as a good reward. Okay, so let's take weight loss as an example. You could take the decrease in clothing side as a reward. That would be a good example of an intrinsic reward. And it would be a really good reward because it means that that reward automatically happens. So when you have weight loss success that comes from eating less and moving more, you have smaller clothes. But some people need a slightly different reward. They need an extrinsic reward, something that's not baked into the reward itself, but something that they have manufactured. So, for example, when you've gone down 10 pounds, you might get a non-food treat. When I lost 10 pounds, I bought a heart monitor. So it's not the most sexy of rewards, but I really, really wanted one. And I figured if I could commit to a 10-pound weight loss, then I had definitely earned the tool that would make my workouts more effective, and I was willing to spend the money on it. So that was my 10-pound reward. Everybody has a different reward. You may decide that eating well all week, for having eaten well all week, Sunday could be your treat day or new purse day or whatever. I'm not judging what your reward system is. I have an absolutely massive weight goal loss, and this is a really tough one for me. And hopefully, a few months of YouTube videos, you're going to be able to see the rapidly shrinking woman. So cross your fingers for me that I continue to do this right, because my weight loss goal is attached to pageantry. There's a dress that I absolutely, absolutely love, but it's a size 8. And currently I'm a size 12. Now, I know that you might be thinking, well, can you really get down to a size 8? I'm very small. I'm a short woman, which means that my smallest body size type is a size 4. So can I go from a 12 to an 8? Yeah, absolutely. It's completely within my health wheelhouse to be able to do that. But here's the thing, it's a commitment to be able to get me into a size 8 dress. You can't just crash diet yourself down 4 dress sizes. I literally have to exercise and eat well to get into this dress. But it's a very achievable goal to accomplish by the time the next pageant rolls around. Now, the interesting thing is I just realized by saying this on a YouTube live video, I've just created an accountability network. Oh, that was good. Okay, so that little tiny panic aside, why did I do a video today on wellness, balance, and habits? Because here's the thing. I see two pieces to being a new you that really must coexist. Part one is that you have to love yourself. If you don't love yourself, or at least accept yourself, then you can't make anything better out of the materials that you currently have, because the building blocks that you have are the only things that you possess right now. You have decades of experience, you have living, coping, celebrating behind you, and probably most of it was good. I mean, yeah, there's some childhoods that were just phenomenally bad and some adulthoods that really weren't much better. But in general, I think most people find that their lives have been overall very good. So accepting yourself doesn't mean that you accept your flaws only and you stop there. What it means is that you look at yourself and you also see how beautiful and strong and intelligent you are. There's no purpose to improving your eating habits if at the end of the day, all you're going to get is a sad, thinner version of yourself with fewer Doritos and less access to Doritos. So part one is loving yourself. Part two is to work on the areas that you truly are interested in improving on. So what does that mean? So yes, you should absolutely lose weight, but think of the last time you did anything because you should. You either find a memory of you gritting your teeth and then doing it just to get it over with, or you find that you didn't do it at all. So instead of what you should do, ask yourself what you want to do. Maybe what you actually want is to take more photos outside, or maybe you want to play Pokemon Go. and good news both happen to increase the amount of walking that you do. So maybe you want to read more. Maybe you want to find books that interest you so that you can read more. Comic books are in fact actually reading, and maybe they aren't considered to be classic literature, but War and Peace is a really heavy first choice, and frankly, it's long. So make small choices and do the things that you want to do. I'm not saying that you don't have to prioritize your health from time to time, like I'm doing right now with my cholesterol. But what I'm saying is that it's a lot easier to make small, fun changes than massive, boring changes. So that is it for today. This has been a 40-minute chat all about wellness and the new year and the new what? Let me know what you thought of today's video in the comments down below, and make sure that you hit the like and the subscribe buttons. And then if you also hit the little bell, you'll always get notified whenever I upload a new video. So I'm going to finish off with a question of the day. My question of the day is this: what are you going to focus on in 2020? So for me, I'm off to go work out because I need to get that done before I can start my day. Until next time, thank you, everyone, and stay charming. Bye.